All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our YouTube channel that is UPSC Geek by NRG. Today, we are going to start with lecture number 12 of Ethics and Human Interface, that is GS paper number 4. But before starting, let's see whether do you remember whatever we have done from previous lecture or not. Okay, so this is the question: which among the following value was not suggested by Nolan committee? All right, so your time starts right now. You will be having 10 seconds to answer. Please ensure to answer in the comment section. Okay, so your time starts now. All right, we are done with 10 seconds. And I think you all might have guessed it right. The answer is truthfulness. If you guys haven't watched the previous lecture, I sincerely request you all to go and have a watch of it, because it will have a continuity of conceptual understanding that will flow from the previous lecture to the further lecture. As I have already told you, a shortcut or trick to remember the values which were suggested by Nolan committee, it was basically Sahil 00. Okay, what is Sahil 00? It is selflessness, accountability, honesty, integrity, leadership, and objectivity and openness. These are the 7 values for ethical public life, which was suggested by Nolan committee of Britain. Okay, so to have a greater idea and clarity about the ethics in public life, go and watch the previous lecture. There I have already dealt with the topic. All right, so let's see the second question: which of the following is not the root cause of decline in the public values? Okay, and your time starts now. All right, so let's see the answer. So I am hoping that you guys are leaving your answers in the comment as well simultaneously. So answer for this is protection to whistleblower. Okay, so as in Kautilya's Arthashastra, he has suggested one of the root cause of decline in public value is basically the lack of protection. Okay, lack of protection. There is no protection to the whistleblower, because of which there is a decline in the public values. Who were the whistleblowers? Whistleblowers were basically the network of spies, network of spies, which was suggested by Kautilya himself for effective administration. Basically, the main role or main function of spies were to blow the wrong or mishappening which were undergoing in the administration. So he has suggested to the king to have a strong network of whistleblowers and give strong protection to them, so as to have a what strong monitoring on the administrators who were functioning in the state. Okay, so here the lack of protection is the right answer. Due to lack of protection, there will be a no decline in the public values. Okay, so let's get started with today's lecture, that is role of family, society, and educational institution in inculcating values. Okay, so this is also one of the topic from the first chapter, and it is one of the last topic but very important one, because questions in 2013, 15 and etc were already being asked related to these topics and values. Okay, so let's get started with this topic. But before starting, I would love to have you all subscribe to the channel and also like the video, because that is what keeps me going and also shows your love to me. Okay, but before starting, we have to understand why we are dealing with this particular topic, right? If UPSC has prescribed this topic for us, there might be some rationale behind us, right? There might be some rationale or justification for this topic to be there in the syllabus. Okay, so why we are doing this? As we have already dealt in our topic of value, that there is a huge prevalence of crisis of values in today's society, right? Crisis of values. What is something which is lacking in such a strong institutions like family, society, and educational institutions, which is leading to the weakening of our value system, right? What is there? What are the loopholes which are prevailing in the institutions like family, society, and educational institutions, which is resulting into some of the very ill consequences like crisis of value? What was the concept of crisis of value? What is the concept of crisis of value? As we have already discussed in our previous lecture of value, right? The crisis of value is basically very beautifully explicited in the holy legend of our country, that is Mahabharata, right? So in this particular slok, which says that janami dharma nachame pravriti, janami adharma nachame nirviti, right? So for the friends who don't know Sanskrit, what this particular sloka means is that here it is a conversation between Duryodhana, one of the negative actor, okay, negative character of Mahabharata, to the Lord Sri Krishna himself. He says that, oh Lord, I know what dharma is, okay, I know what dharma is, but I am not inspired to pursue it, right? Janami dharma nachame pravriti, I know what dharma is, but I am not inspired to pursue it, right? But at the same time he is saying janami adharma, I know what adharma is, okay, I know what adharma is, and I also know the ill consequences, but I cannot withdraw from it. I cannot withdraw from it. I cannot withdraw from I cannot withdraw from it. This is the idea behind this concept of crisis of value. Despite us being aware about the value system that we have, we still tend to engage in some of the heinous activity with of the society, right? We still tend to engage in some of the immoral activity which is prevalent in the society. How or why? Let's see, if you are a driving in a road and if a traffic police catches you not wearing your seat belt, right? You know you have broken the law, but you still try to bribe this traffic police by saying that sir ले लो आपको जो भी लेना है 100 500 but छोड़ दो जाने दो, right? This is what, this is a bribery. We know that it is immoral, because if we will engage in such activity, it will create this vicious cycle, right, which will be unstoppable. If I will do it, the person who is sitting behind me, let's say if my brother is sitting beside me, if someday he will also be caught by any police or traffic police, he will also do the same manner, he will also do the same thing, right? So this is the idea behind the concept of crisis of value, that despite everyone being aware about the idea of value system, being aware about the concept of value system, but still we tend to oversee it, we tend to oversee it, we tend to not follow it, right? This is the idea of crisis of value. This concept has already been asked in the exam, the concept of crisis of value, the concept of crisis of conscience, right? Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishna has very famously propounded the idea of crisis of value in his book, right? He said that despite India being a rich nation with innumerable value system, still we face a situation of crisis of value, where we tend to engage in all sort of immoral activities like corruption, right? Corruption and whatnot in our public system, right? So this is the idea which is being prevalent in majority in the society. That is why there is a need to look back at the sources of value system like family, society and educational system, and what is the loophole in this institutions which is leading us to the crisis of value, right? So let's get started with the role of family in inculcating values, right? So today we will be seeing role of family in inculcating values, right? But before seeing what is the role of family, we have to understand what is value, right? So we have already dealt with the concept of values and its different dimensions. We will just be seeing one of the definition by Professor R.K. Mukherjee. R.K. Mukherjee, it is very important. So basically, according to Professor, values are socially approved desires and goals that are internalized through the process of conditioning, learning, socialization, and aspirations. Why? So here, what is important for us? We know we have already dealt with the concept of values. Values are nothing but our principles, subjective principles or yardsticks, we can say, which guides our action, right? Which basically guides whether our actions are right or wrong. It is very individual, subjective in nature. Values can differ from person to person, right? But here, as per professor, it becomes very important for us to know that it is a socially approved desire. This is the first thing, right? So the values which are also socially approved, which is also socially ratified, is kind of considered as a desirable value to inculcate. Okay, and goals that are internalized through, okay, that are internalized through, that are inculcated through the process of conditioning, learning, and socialization and aspiration. Okay, so these are the methods how one learns the value: through conditioning, through learning, through socialization, and through aspirations. Conditioning is basically a psychological term where one is subjected to a particular tendency in repeated manner, and basically it gets instilled in someone's brain, right? Let's say if I see someone doing something very frequently, right? If a child he sees his dad respecting his dad, okay, if a child sees his dad respecting his grandfather in regular frequent manner, like touching his feet and etc., he will also be conditioned to the same practice. He will also be conditioned to the same practice. Why? Because he is being subjected to the stimulus. Okay, he is being subjected to the same practice, or stimulus, repeatedly in repeated manner, and hence he will be conditioned. So this is the process of conditioning. Okay, whenever a subject is subjected to a action in repeated or in frequent manner, then this process of learning is basically called as conditioning. What is the second thing? It is a learning basically. Okay, we have different source of learning, and hence learning plays very important role in value inculcation. The third is socialization. Today we are going to see the process of socialization because it is very important, because as Aristotle famously quoted in his Nicomachean Ethics that humans are social animal, and we ought not to live without the existence of society, and hence the socialization process becomes very important for the process of value inculcation. And the last is aspiration through the role model. We aspire few role models in the society, and we tend to portray the values that are being projected by such a role model, right? Like for example, a great IAS officer can be a role model for people who are preparing for UPSC. A great politician, a great public figure, a great actor, and whatnot, right? So these are the some of the role model, and kind of the values which they portray will also be portrayed or imbibed in us, right? Because this is something known as role modeling. Okay, so again, these are the types of values. Values can be personal, social, core, and universal, right? So on the basis of importance, we also have intrinsic and extrinsic value. We also have intrinsic and extrinsic values. Okay, on the basis of consequences or result, we have positive or negative values. Okay, we have already dealt with all this concept in greater depth and clarity in the previous lecture. I sincerely request you all to go and have a watch of the previous lecture, because it will for sure help you build your conceptual understanding in more solid pedestal. Okay, and also ensure to show your love by subscribing to the channel, that is UPSC Geek by NRG. All right, so this was all about value, right? So now the process of value inculcation comes, right? We have understood what value is. Now let's understand the process of value inculcation. When we say the role of family, educational institution, and society in value inculcation, what does this particular term value inculcation means? Okay, so the value inculcation is a process to fix or instill, okay, to fix or instill values firmly in someone's mind. Okay, and these are the methods we have already seen in value, like through conditioning, socialization, or learning. Okay, so basically the term that is fix, instill needs to be remembered. It is a basically inculcation is a process to fix or instill values firmly in someone's mind. Why firmly? Because once value is imbibed, it is instilled, it becomes very hard to change. It becomes very hard to change until any reality is experienced by a person, and through the process of re-socialization it gets amended or changed, right? With time, with temporal and spatial differences, the values does change, but it becomes very hard to change. That is why it is a process to fix or instill values firmly in someone's mind, right? So social institutions like family, educational institutions, and society plays greater role in inculcating one's value, right? Because as we all know that the family, educational institutions, society, and etc. They are the first source of our, they are the first or primary source of our knowledge, our education, right? Primary source of our knowledge or education, and hence they becomes very very important when it comes to value inculcation, because values are also one kind of knowledge or learning, right? And these are the places like homes. Home is usually, or house is the first school of a child, right? Whenever a child or infant is born, he directly do not starts going to the school. He learns so many initial things or primary things from his parents, right? And hence parents, and especially mother, becomes his or her first teacher, and house becomes the school, right? That is why family, educational institution, and society plays significant role in shaping one's value, which is going to remain with individual for almost rest of his life, right? That is why it becomes very very important and imperative for parents, for teachers, for teachers for teachers, and also societal role models to portray good values, right? To portray good values, so that the people who are following them, right, in case of parents, the children are following them continuously, right? And hence whenever a child takes birth, the responsibility of parents increases manifold. Why? Because now there is an individual who is imitating them, right? And now how they behave will kind of have an impact on the children. That is why parents have to become very very responsible when it comes to child care, right? Similarly teachers, because the kind of behavior teachers will have on children, it will also be reflected through the students they are teaching. And similarly the people like us in the society, we should always be mindful of our action. Why? Because always in the society someone is directly or indirectly observing our actions, right? And they are learning from us, and the kind of action we engage ourselves in, it will be also manifested or reflected through the people, right? So this is how the role of family, educational institutions, and society becomes very very important in value inculcation. Okay, so now let's see stages of value inculcation, right? Like how value inculcation takes place. Does value inculcation is a one time phenomena is one time phenomena, or does it happens in stages, right? So the sociologist like Maurice Massey, he is one of the renowned sociologists. He says that no, value inculcation always takes place in stages, right? And he also divides the lifespan of child, life lifespan of a child and the different stages of value inculcation, right? Like he says, from birth to 7 years, it is basically a imprint period where the brain of the child is clean slate, right? Clean slate. The concept of tabula rasa by Locke, right? Tabula rasa. Whenever a child is born, his mind is like a clean slate, without any worldly experience, without any social awareness, right? And through imprint period, that is the first stage, child gets to learn very very important values from family, right? From parents, from family, from educational institutions, and etc. In the second stage, the role of educational institutions increases, right? Because the child with clean slate has already gotten some experience, and now he started role modeling, he started considering his teacher as a role model, right? And the third stage, socialization period, begins, where the society plays, right? The peers, the peer group, the friends, the work colleagues, and etc., they help individual in shaping his or her value, right? And at this stage also, the process of resocialization that we are going to see will start happening. What is process of resocialization? So whatever values that we have learned in the initial stage, that will have a kind of reality check, that whatever values we have learned at the house is true or not, right? Let's say most of the time in our house we get the learning that we should always be truth, we should always be truthful, we should always be non-violent, right? We should always show empathy and sympathy in the world, right? But whenever we step into real world, right, there will be a kind of reality check. And in this reality check we will come to realize that no, it is not true, it is not worldly possible to always be truthful. We cannot always be truthful. We have to take a means of a falsehood as well in order to achieve certain ends, because truth will not always accrue us certain kind of ends, right? And even for some benefits to other people, for the welfare of other people, we have to apply the means of what? A moral false or moral lie or noble lie, the notion of noble lie, right? Which says that sometimes we have to consider lie as a means for the welfare of other individual, right? Let's say in your house there is a person who is hiding, who is being chased by a few criminals, right? And whenever there is a criminal who knocks at your door and asks, is there a person hiding in your house? At that time, to save this particular individual, you have to tell a lie. Why? So that his life can be safeguarded. And that is what noble lie is, right? And this is what we come to know in this socialization period through the process of re-socialization, where we tend to challenge some of the preconceived values that we learned from these two stages, that is imprint period and modeling period, right? And we tend to make our values more pragmatic in nature, which will be kind of more applicable in the real world society, right? Real world society. And that is a brief idea about the stages of value inculcation by Maurice Massey. Now we will see specifically the role of family in inculcating values, right? So today's idea will be role of family in inculcating values, right? So what is the importance of family, right? So family is the foundation on which values are built, right? Because whatever values we have is a kind of manifestation of values of our family, right? Manifestation of values of our family. So here family becomes the foundation on which our values are built. Okay, family is the cornerstone of society. Why cornerstone of society? Because family is the first element of the society. Family is the first element in the society. If there is no family, there will be no society, right? And hence your family becomes the elementary cornerstone of the society. Human society cannot function without family. Why? Because again, the very basic idea of humans being a social animal, human being a social animal, right, is comes here. And hence humans cannot function without family, right? And also a notion of what? A notion or idea of self-sufficiency come here, right? Idea of self-sufficiency come here, right? It is basically said that human beings are not a self-sufficient entity. Human beings are not a self-sufficient entity. We need a family, we need other individual for our moral, emotional, physical and psychological satisfaction, psychological needs and requirement, right? And hence here family is the what? Family, humans cannot function without the family. The idea of insufficiency of human beings come here. Family is the first home of citizenship, right? Family is the first home of citizenship. Why? Because every human belongs to their family. This is the first identity, right? Identity. Whenever someone asks, who are you, we tend to always associate name of our dad, right? Name of our dad, X, the name of the father, then the title. What are this particular thing? This basically shows the lineage or the family lineage, right? And it also tends to play a role of a identity from the family. Okay, and mother is the first and most important teacher of a child, as we already know. So family is a bond that is unbreakable, this is for sure. Okay, So these are the some of the importance of the family, and it becomes very important for us to know that children learn the most important values. Okay, children learn the most important values from their families, and which is going to remain with the children for almost rest of their lives, right? And hence it becomes very very imperative and important for families to inculcate good values, to inculcate good values in the children, right? Because it is going to shape their personality and also the attitude towards the world, attitudes towards the world. Okay, so this is the idea or importance of role of family in inculcating value. Okay, so now let's see how family inculcates value, right? Or the methods of value inculcation. We have seen family being a source of values, right? Home being a first school, our parents being our first teacher. What is the process or method through which value inculcation takes place? So the process is known as process of socialization, right? It is a process of socialization. What is socialization? Even in our home, whenever a child is born, right? In any home, whenever a child is born, we know child is kind of in the stage of tabula rasa, right? Where he is a born with a state of clean slate, right? A state of clean slate. His mind is kind of clean slate, right? As what is slate? Slate is something, a clean board, right? Which we used to use in our childhood with a pencil. We used to write. I think you guys might have remember that slate. It is not so obsolete. Even it is to these days, it is being used, though it is being modernized as a whiteboard and etc. But still, till date, it is being used. I think in some of the primary schools. Okay, so best mode of learning because you could erase it easily, right? Write and erase it. That is why here the law says that the child is born with a state of tabula rasa or a clean slate, right? And hence the first process of socialization of a child with clean slate is with his parents or her parents, right? This is the first socialization of a child, right? So the process of socialization begins at home, right? Begins at home, and hence from here the process of value inculcation always also starts in the child, right? So let's see what the process of socialization is. The process of transformation. So the process of socialization is basically process of transformation. Transformation of what? Transformation of the human infant from biological animal into social individual is called as socialization. Okay, or the process of socialization, right? So whenever an infant is born, whenever a baby is born, right? Whenever a baby is born, his mind is like a clean slate, right? His mind is having no worldly experience without values, morals, and etc. But through the process of socialization, there includes or it includes the process of what? Inculcation of values, teaching of values. That through the process of what? Nurturing of the child, through the process of nurturing of the child, nurturing of the child, he gets transformed into social individual, right? Social individual. Why social individual? Because because in order to live in a society, in order to exist in a society, we must be having certain moral norms, we must have certain values which are socially acceptable, which are socially acceptable, right? So for example, let's say usually in children are basically operated with the sense of satisfaction, right? Children basically work with the notion of sense of satisfaction. For them, their sensual satisfactions become very very important. This is the idea of conditioning which was given by Sigmund Freud, one of the greatest psychologists, right? Sigmund Freud, right? Sigmund Freud. What did he say? He said that children are basically operate or work on the principle of their sensual satisfaction, right? What is sensual satisfaction? Or the bodily satisfaction through sucking of their thumbs, sucking of their thumbs, right? This is the very basic example. Whenever a child is born, he basically starts sucking his thumb or a nipple to get that sensual satisfaction, right? And gradually that develops or evolved into the satisfaction of what other senses like taste, right? And hence child start craving for what? Food or chocolates and etc. And this becomes what? A source of pleasure for child, source of pleasure for child, right? Child becomes very self-centered, child becomes very self-centered, right? He do not care about any other child or any other being. He just care about his source of pleasure. He needs his sensual pleasure, right? But this is how the parents, right, the parents inculcate the values in the child that no, in order to not instantly but like obviously the process is gradual in nature. It is not a single time process, it is a process which take times, right? That is why I have taught you the stages, right? It is not, value inculcation is never a single time process. It always takes years and years of time. Even to the late adulthood, few people, they keep on challenging their preconceived values and notion and re-establishing their values through the process of resocialization, right? So here when the child was mainly driven by the self-centricism through the values like help, values like empathy, values like mutual cooperation, the child is taught certain societal values, right? So let's say whenever a child is with other child and they both fight for, let's say, a single toy, they both fight for a single toy, what does the mother say? No beta, you should not do like this, he is your friend, he is your brother, you both play together, right? This is how a mom inculcates values in the child, inculcates value in the child, right? Let's say two siblings are fighting for the chocolate. Let's say a brother and sisters are fighting for a chocolate. What does mother or parents teach to the child? No beta, you should not eat it alone, you should share it with your sister or brother, right? So this is how the value starts shaping their attitude, right? That we should not always be self-centered, we must not always be self-centered, we should always, or we should also be thinking about the interest of the others, right? And that is where they start developing the process of what? Empathy, where they are also starting to learn the process of understanding the interest of others. These are the importance of others, right? Empathy, love, help, respect. Respect what? Respecting the needs of others, right? Though they might not understand this complexity of terminology, but they start developing the feeling of doing so, right? So whenever, if this particular boy, let's say he grows up and whenever his dad give him a piece of chocolate or something, he will also ensure to share with his sister, right? Because the parents have made sure that they inculcated good values in the child, right? And this is how the process of socialization starts from very early of the age, where a biological animal who was very self-centered, right? Animals are usually self-centered, they basically concerned about their sustenance, procreation and etc. And similarly the infant, being a biological animal, he is transformed to a social individual where he starts taking into consideration the interest of others as well, interest of others as well, right? So this is how the process of socialization takes place. Socialization is a process of internalizing social values, internalizing, right, the value inculcation, as I have already told you, to social needs and making them part of the personality. It is also called as internalization of social values because the values are internalized through the process of conditioning, learning, aspiration, and socialization. And it becomes internalized to the personality of the individual, which becomes very hard to change, right? So this is the definition of process of socialization. Again, there are three stages of process of socialization. The first stage is primary stage. Okay, the first stage is primary stage. The second stage is secondary stage, and third is basically the process of resocialization. Resocialization. We will see each of the stages in their greater depth, right? The three stages: first stage basically primary stage, second is secondary stage, and third is the process of resocialization. Okay, so let's see the primary stage. So primary socialization, as you can directly see in this picture here, this is the process of socialization which occurs at the most primary stage of a child, most primary or beginning, most primary or beginning stage of the child, stage of the child, right? Of the child, basically from 0 to 5 or 7 years of age, right? Here parents become their source of, parents become their source of their parents becomes their source of what? Values, right? Through the warmth, right? Through the warmth, love, compassion, compassion, care that a child receives from parent, receives from his or her parent. Okay, he also tend to what? Inculcate these very basic values, right? Whenever he receives a value of love, compassion from a parents, he also understand what does the term love mean, right? We cannot define what this particular value mean, but only we can only feel it, right? We can only feel it. The values like warmth, love, compassion, care, etc., we can only feel it, we cannot explain it, right? And child being born as a clean slate, he can feel these values from his or her parent, and he starts internalizing these very basic values, right? So these are the very basic values which a child starts internalizing at the primary stage or primary socialization stage, right? Where parents plays very important role. But these days what is happening? Due to nuclear family culture, due to nanny culture, right? Nanny culture. What is nanny culture? A a caretaker is appointed to take care of a child, right? Because parents are engaged in some profession or work, right? But as we all know that the caretaker or nanny cannot reciprocate the same kind of love, warmth, compassion, care which is being given by a, or which can be given only by the parent to a child. And this is why the child are initially getting neglected in this initial sensitization or the process of socialization of most universal values like warmth, love, compassion, care, and etc., right? And hence the children of this time or the modern world are also kind of becoming a little bit insensible. Why? Because they are enabling to feel, right, the very universal values of warmth, love, compassion, care, and etc. And hence up till very later on of their life, it takes time for them to inculcate all these universal values, right? And this is how a parents of modern world have to ensure that the values which are required by the child at this primary socialization stage can only be given by the parents, and they should have moral responsibility. They should have moral responsibility in order to moral responsibility moral response parents must have this moral responsibility towards their children in primary value inculcation, in primary value inculcation, right? And that is why if you see in today's world there is a concept of maternity leave, right? Maternity leave. And this is how important it becomes for all the future administrators to have an idea and to ensure that there is a proper provision of concept like maternity leave. It is not only about the pre-pregnancy period or stage, it is also about the post-pregnancy stage, where the very basic warmth, love, care, and etc. of the child can only be given by the mother, right? And if mother is engaged in any profession and etc., she will not be able to tender those basic warmth, love, and etc. to the child, right? This is why the idea of maternity leave becomes very, very important for any working professional, right? So this was all about the primary socialization. The secondary socialization is basically the idea of socialization, idea of socialization beyond immediate family, right? Idea of socialization that takes place beyond immediate family. So who are the people who are the beyond immediate family? The beyond immediate family, as you can see in this particular pictures, are basically the peers, right? Peers of friends. When a child starts going to a school, he gets to see or meet a lot of his peers, classmates, or friends, and etc., right? And by engaging in different games, activities, games, sports, sports, he inculcates all those values which are being promoted in this peers or in his group of friends, right? At this stage, a child basically learns the values like team team building, or values like team building, right? How important it becomes to have a or work with the team, right? Values like mutual respect, right? Mutual respect, help, care, right? Compassion. If a child while playing falls down, the friend must help him, right? this these are some of the basic values which can only be learned at the secondary socialization or at the stage of secondary socialization, right? So here the family or role of family, right? Role of family or parent becomes very, very important, so as to ensure that their children are going at the right place for secondary socialization, right? That is why the role of good school, right? Good school or good curriculum in the school becomes very, very important. Why? Because this is where they learn the values which is related to secondary socialization, right? So you might be observing with the kids these days that whenever a parents tend to do something wrong, right? So let's say while driving or walking on the road, if a father if a if a kid observes his father spitting on the road, right, a child will immediately stop him and he will say that no dad, you should not do that, that is bad, right? And this is what the kind of things he is learning at the stage of secondary socialization, right? By learning things from his peers, by learning things at the school from his teachers, right? Who are the people beyond his family. This is what the secondary socialization is all about. So what is secondary socialization? It is the process of socialization beyond the immediate family. Primary socialization, process of socialization or inculcation of values within the primary care, that is family. Secondary socialization is basically inculcation of value which takes place beyond immediate family, that is within the peer group, friends, and etc., right? So this is all about the secondary socialization. Now let's see the idea or the third stage of resocialization. So as I have already told you that whenever we pass through the stage of socialization in the family, that is primary socialization, then secondary socialization also includes school, religious, and etc. We at the stage of adulthood, we tend to have all the basic socialization or values that were inculcated in our homes or schools and etc., right? But when we come to the real world, when we come at the real world real world we tend to experience the reality check, we tend to experience the reality check, right? The idea of noble life, as I have already told you in the beginning of the lecture, that as we have told since our early of our age, that telling lie is not the valuable or moral action, right? But sometimes to save someone's life or to promote someone else's welfare, we also have to engage in a lie, which is noble lie, that is lie for someone's good, someone's good, right? What if there is a person hidden in the house, and if a criminal who is chasing that particular individual asks the owner that is there someone who is hiding in your home, right? And what if a person, he tells the true or the real thing to that criminal, he will end up killing that person, right? So in order to save this particular man from execution, he have to say a lie, right? And this is noble life, a life for someone's good, right? So when we come into the real world or real politics, we tend to challenge some of our we tend to challenge some of our preconceived notion or preconceived values, preconceived preconceived values, right? We tend to challenge some of the values that were taught in the school, right? Let's say this is about the truthfulness, right? That we cannot always be truthful. Sometimes we also engage in a noble life to promote the welfare of the other individuals, right? Also about sometimes the idea of what sometimes the idea of empathy, sympathy, compassion also comes in, right? Let's see, if you are being overly sympathy towards someone, and here people will start taking the advantage of your value system, right? They will start engaging in the activities like asking money from you continuously or frequently. You will always fall into the prey, and here you will be challenging your value system. No, I have to maintain that boundary because this is the real world. If I will be too much adherent to my value system, then people will take advantage, right? And again, the process of at this stage, when you will be challenging your values, whenever you will be challenging your value system, challenging your old value system, and will be having a new value system, right? So that were the some of the example which I gave about the what about the very basic universal values. But now let's see, in today's world there is a concept of what a LGBTQIA plus sensitization, right? Sensitization, right? In usually what happens is that in our household we are not usually taught about this particular queer community, right? Queer community, either we are not at all told, or we were taught some negative notion about this sensitization, right? About this particular queer community. But now after time has changed, now after certain change in legal provisions even by honorable Supreme Court, we have to change our value system, right? We have to change our value system, and we have to respect this queer community. We have to accept their what peculiar we have to accept their peculiar identity, and we have to respect them despite our value system, despite our opinions. The same, right? So this is how the importance of resocialization comes, right? If I have to give some other examples, the first one is the queer community, as I have already told you. The second one is again very important, the same sex marriage, right? It might not be accepted in the conventional household as an appropriate value, but we have to respect it, right? Despite our value system and our opinions, right? We have to respect it. This is how it will be socially what desirable, right? Even if we don't have any personal opinion about them, we have to accept their rights, right? So this is how resocialization helps us in reshaping our value system, reshaping our value system, right? So with this we are done with the stages of what process of socialization. So there is one very bothering concern which says that, is the institution of family dying? This is very genuine questions, right? Because in this world of industrialization, urbanization, the advancement of technology, changing cultural norms, new priorities, new forms of communication fueled by internet, people are becoming more comfortable with the friends, family they are having online or on screen than the people who are in the actual reality, right? People are more fine or comfortable with the devices in their hands than the people who are actually sitting by them, right? So is because of all this condition, is the institution of family dying? What do you guys think, right? Please leave your thought in the comment. I will give them a read and also inculcate them in the next lecture. Okay, so let's see whether is it really dying. So the answer is certainly not. हम साथ साथ हैं. Okay, as you can still see in the picture, right? हम साथ साथ हैं. Why? Because the family is just as relevant as it was ever, right? And no matter how much life changes in the future, it will probably continue to be needed in one form or another, right? Why? Because human will always be a social animal. Social animal. Irrespective of amount of time we spend on screen, we always will come back to the family or the people who are close to us, right? The people who are always close to us, like our parents, our siblings, our wife, husbands, and etc. Right? So certainly not is the institution of family dying, certainly not, and that cannot be ever possible, right? Because it will probably continue to be needed in one form or another. The definition of family has evolved, right? The kind of family or the definition or notion of family that we had in, let's say, last decade, that might not continue to date, but the notion will evolve, but its importance will always remain the same, right? The importance of family will always remain the same, though we will not be able to continue the notion of joint family that we had 5 years or 10 years back, but still whenever we get a vacation or whenever we have a festival, we will always strive our best to spend those quality time together with our family, right? हम साथ हैं. Okay, so certainly not is the institution of family dying. Big no. Why? हम साथ हैं. With this, we are done with today's lecture, guys, and I'm hoping that you guys are learning and also enjoying the lecture. If you guys are learning and enjoying, please ensure to show your love by subscribing to our channel, that is UPSC Geek by NRG, and also like the video. Thank you.